what kind of stretch of land are we actually talking about when we're talking about White City? We've been working on this since the fall of 2004, initially addressing a stretch of land on the border between Kensington and Hammersmith. A stretch of land one wouldn't really expect so centrally. Basically a large stretch of land, mostly underutilized, mostly dedicated to kind of industrial use as one would expect further away from the city, as you can see here, and partly a site cut off by infrastructure leading into central London from its surroundings. The site itself, in its current form, is the most impressive collection of dead ends I've ever encountered in planning any sites. But that's a very strange paradox, because at the same time the site is at a crossroads of almost any major infrastructural link in west of London. The Central Line, the West Cross route, the A40, the New Hammersmith and City Line, soon to be linking Westfield. So that, in a way, is a bit of a paradox. The BBC site linked to the site is actually quite close to Heathrow, at least when the Heathrow Express works. Basically, it's a site rather peripheral in terms of London media activity as of yet, as was raised in one of the questions. As you can see, I mean, if one is honest, the major hub of media activity still resides in the West End, with Broadcasting House still very much of a symbol of BBC presence right in the centre of London. However, there are stretches of BBC land. There are stretches of BBC land it still controls, and even when it does away with it, still to some extent controls the destiny of these pieces of land, which are considerable. There is Television Centre, there is Media Village, where we're currently residing. But on the whole, if you look at the site, and if you look at it in the larger London context, and the way London is developing, the site in a way is an interesting site. What you could say that in its current form, London is being surrounded by new developing sites, Greenwich, Stratford, the Olympics, of course, King's Cross, Paddington, and then in that context, West 12, this area, is an interesting missing link in a set of development sites that encircle London. On the whole, the site that one can plan here is comparable in size to these other developments. It's a little bit bigger than King's Cross, a little bit smaller than Stratford. It basically borders also Westfield Shopping Centre, recently planned. The site, of course, one would like to treat, if this is to become a reality, it's very important that the site is treated integrally as a whole and planned as a single thing. But of course, as a typical London context the ownership of the site is, of course, hugely fragmented. This was a map which I think was originally drawn when Yugoslavia broke down into a number of fragmented entities, and this is that type of drawing technique basically applied to the opportunity area. Basically what you can see is that, of course, not only planning and designing is a huge job, but simply coordinating a number of vested interests in the area in a single-minded way is maybe the biggest task. Well, good intentions, as there are at the beginning of every exercise, blah, 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 blah. But basically what we did was plan the whole area using the presence of the BBC as a single integrated whole. Due to the timing of this conference and particular occurrences happening in the administration, I can unfortunately only show our master plan the way NASA shows strategic military sites. So this is a little unfortunate. I'd like to tell a lot more, but I can't. However, I've taken this as an alibi to talk whatever the hell I want to talk about, and I would like to broaden the subject. The question was whether I could talk about media experiences in other parts of the world. I don't really want to do that, because I think the BBC is quite unique. But I would like to talk about London, and I would like to talk particularly about the relationship between London and creativity. But the relationship between the unique physical substance of London and how creativity inhabits that physical substance. This is a list, these are the most well-known lists of top 10 cities that are increasingly being made. Mercer, The Economist, Financial Times, and Monocle. Interestingly enough, London is absent from every single list, which I think is a good thing. Because, I mean, if you consider places like Vancouver, Melbourne, Auckland, and Adelaide, which feature very, very highly, one could wonder if one would really want to feature in such a list. London is a great place. This is a sort of a brash lad in the 1960s in the London streetscape, otherwise known by the name of Mick Jagger. And I think what is very beautiful about this picture is that it shows that London, even to those people, even to people world famous, is a home and not a stage. The examples of this are countless. A number of typical youngsters in the 1980s having fun with the rubbish containers, otherwise known as the Sex Pistol. Here is their inventor, casually leaning in the London streetscape. David Bowie, kind of casually here. Don't know who this is. Vivienne Westwood, of course a long history, but Vivienne Westwood as a kind of hausfrau on a bicycle in the street, as is the mayor on a bicycle in the street. Well, it's a guy in a jogging suit on the phone. It is amazing how unflattering London can be to those who are very renowned. George Michael, Pete Doherty and Kate Moss in a kind of typical state between alcohol and coffee early in the morning. But however unflattering these pictures are, they're truly authentic, and I could imagine that, I mean, contrary to some of the Hollywood shots you see, that these people actually are really in love. Well, another... I mean, to some stars, the city is such a place that they don't even need to bother with stardom and can embark on a mission of self-destruction even before they could. Liam Gallagher and Patsy Kensit wrapped in the Union Jack. The Union Jack is another interesting thing. It's not the flag of London, of course, but in a way it is the flag of London. It's the national symbol, but with the greatest ease, it's also the symbol of mockery, without anybody batting an eyelid. At the same countercultural effects, it is the symbol of almost anything. What this proves to me is that talking about creative London in a way is really superfluous, because it's probably the worst tautology ever invented, because I mean the two words are almost synonymous for one another. So creative London is like, well, this goes for almost all cultural domains. It goes particularly for pop culture. There is, however, one area of culture where this mentality and this particular thing is completely passed by. That is the domain of architecture and planning. Let's have a look at that. Paternoster Square. The sort of highlight of London's planning, also the highlight of London's debate in the 1980s. Not particularly avant-garde. The debate continues well until today. This is Chelsea Barracks. This is what Richard Rogers proposed for Chelsea Barracks. This is the Prince taking a bashing with the backing of the local community. This is then what is proposed instead. Anyway, the thing goes on. Richard Rogers lays into the Prince. But the unfortunate thing is, even though there is controversy, and even though there is a seeming debate, that really what these two things are is two forms of establishment in a way having a go at each other. I mean, the same mentality that you saw in the earlier part of the presentation isn't really here. This is one old man arguing against another old man who are set in their views. And if one is really, really honest, the mediocrity of this is very easily matched by the mediocrity of this scheme. Both are, it is not that London's modernist critiques are so vicious, or that the critics of modernisms in London are so vicious. It is that modernism itself, when it comes to architecture in London, is so mediocre that it can only provoke such a response. Another story of modernisation. It's a story of the bus, of the bendy bus. This is bus, as most of us know them on the continent. Driving in London, single-decker bus. I think there have been single-decker bus in London since 1969. This example, I think, is active as of about